He was taking screenshots of this prick's property, of the land records, prior to this all happening because he wanted to know how much he had in assets. So he was basically just doing proper accounting to figure out, what we could go get from this son of a bitch. What this guy did, what this judge did, is he moved 6 of those houses out of his name and put them in his mother's name. Now that's a felony. That is an absolute felony because what that is, it's called secreting of funds. Because once you are made aware of that there's a judgment against you, if you go and try and secret anything to try to keep it away from that judgment, that is considered felony theft. But this moron is so stupid, or just doesn't care. I don't know which. He went and did that, and we have the screenshots of it to prove it. That he got noticed on this date, and like 3 days later, or however long it wasn't quite 3 days. I think it was more like a week or something like that. Because there's, it was 6 houses. That's a lot of paperwork to have to deal with. He had them all transferred into his mother's name, and we were like, really? So what do you say? So you're telling us that our process is incorrect, right? I mean, this is the absolute, the insanity of this is that these judges are saying, well, this process isn't correct, and you guys, that's not right, and you don't have any jurisdiction. Okay, if we don't have jurisdiction, this process is incorrect. What the hell are you moving 6 houses for, asshole? I mean, really? If you weren't afraid, why'd you just move all your 6 houses into your mother's name? Kind of a question there. To me, that was all the evidence I needed. I'm like, okay, all right. We totally have them by their ass. It's just a matter of us figuring out exactly the thing to put the last little puzzle piece in and just smash them with it. Because everything is completely done. It's over. And it's been done for a while now. Because I think this thing, when did this lien go down? Yeah, this was last year. So 11/10/2020. Okay, so this lien was in 11/10/2020. So everything's cured, everything's done, everything's fixed, finalized. There's nothing they can do to get out of it. So yeah, I'm going to talk with my friend and say, hey, what do you think we could do as far as just, foreclosing on this lien? Because clearly, I don't know what the state of Colorado has as far as its assets are concerned. But if I can start seizing court buildings, why not? That's the way I look at it. So anyway, that's all of Drew's fun stuff. That's where he's at. Now, let's get into even something that's even more, like, unbelievably over the top. And that is Stark's information. Now, I didn't put all the Stark stuff in here. I don't have Stark's arbitration award, but I do have this other guy, Demetrius's award, who's named in this bill. So this is Bradley Christopher Stark, Sean Michael Rideout, and certain named beneficiaries. In the Senate of the United States, November 5th, 2016, Mr. Paul introduced the following bill, which was read twice and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. So this bill was read in Congress, people. So a bill for the relief of Bradley Christopher Stark, blah, blah, blah. I got to give you a little background here. What Stark did was he basically, the United States came after him for, I think it was something like, I don't want to say something like security fraud stuff or something like that. I don't remember. It was something financial. What Stark did was he said, you guys don't have jurisdiction. And again, they're like, we don't care. He said, well, okay. He said, if you want to play that game, then here's a contract that says if you move forward with final judgment on this, you will be entering into this contract because you have not proven jurisdiction. So he did it not exactly in the same way that we did it with True, but it had the same feel to it. Like it had the same logic behind it, right? Saying, okay, if you're saying that I'm entering into your contract, well, then guess what? You're going to enter into mine too. And then what I learned from Stark was that you can create a power of attorney inside the contract. Because what Stark did is he took power of attorney, as I said, over Eric Holder, and he turned around and he signed his name to various different things, which that I do have proof of. And I do actually have the documents of that. But so anyway, that's the background of it. They did the judgment or whatever, and Stark was like, okay, you entered into contract. And then he did all of this stuff and put it through binding arbitration and then signed Eric Holder's name to a few things to dismiss the cases and whatnot, whatever. This is the bill. Now, this is 22 pages. I'm not going to read all this, but there's just some parts of here. And by the way, this is the proposed bill. This is not the law yet. I just want to show you guys that I have both the proposed bill and I have the actual private law that was passed by Congress and eventually signed by Obama. And there's a whole another story behind that I'll get to in a minute. All right, definitions. Definitions, we can skip all that, blah, blah. The term agreement means a stipulated agreement. These were the stipulated agreements that basically, I'm pretty sure that Stark signed Eric Holder's name to, which were I believe they were the binding arbitration agreements. So between Bradley, Christopher Stark, Sean Mark, and the United States of America. The term Attorney General means the Office of Attorney General of the United States. The term awards, interim awards, final award mean with respect to the agreement. The final binding and non-appealable decisions and remedies of the arbitrator awarded pursuant to the agreement. That's important because this section right here shows you that Congress is fully aware of the fact that you can't get out of an arbitration agreement, or particularly an award. Term beneficiaries means all these following people, and there's a long list of them. This is the guy whose paperwork I have, Demetrius. This is the guy I have his paperwork for this whole process that they did. So anyway, this just keeps on going and going and going and going and going. I don't know how all these people got involved with this, but they did. The term corporate beneficiaries means any of the following beneficiaries individually or in any combination thereof or both, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is weird because what Stark basically did, and I don't know why he did this, but he did. What he did was he gave like each one of these banks, like, I think it was like 20 million or something. Maybe it was 2 million. I don't remember. But it says in here. And I don't know if he did it as like a payoff or what. I don't know what he was thinking or what he was doing. But anyway. So the term immediate family shall mean the living and natural mother, father, both adopted mother, father, natural maternal grandmother, grandfather, both, or natural paternal, whatever, blah, blah. So basically their immediate families got taken care of as well. Term parties of either party following of the agreement, either individually or in conjunction with one or other or both. Bradley, Christopher Stark, Sean Michael Rideout. Term person shall mean any individual partnership, joint stock company, trust, or corporation named in this act, including any immediate family member or relevant employee to which this act relates and may affect, except that the term natural person, and I've never seen this in a congressional act before, that the term natural person shall only refer to any living human being that is a party, beneficiary, or immediate family member as described in this act, and shall not mean any partnership, association, joint stock company, trust, or corporation. So guess what, guys? You see for the first time that I've ever seen Congress clearly differentiating between what a natural person is and what the fictions are. Now, again, I don't like to use the term natural person because I don't like the term person at all. Basically, it's saying natural infant. But what a natural person basically is it's someone who has the capacity for rights and duties, which doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to exercise them, but it does mean that you do have the capacity for them. So it is different than just person as far as the definition of person is concerned. As an infant, defined as an infant under Title I, USC subsection 8, under the definition section for person. But anyway, I found that stunning when I read that. I was like, what? The term records shall mean all records, system records, library, catalogs, lists, optical, electronic, and physically stored information that relates to the named parties and beneficiaries in this act. I pulled this verbatim out of here and put it into the KW. I was like, that's perfect. I was like, that's exactly what I want. All of that. The term trust, as used in this act, means the superfund and any designated justice relief fund or account established by Section 6 of this act. The term United States, as used in this act, means the United States of America. Interesting how they actually are defining it as the same thing here. The government of the United States, or in a geographical sense, all 50 states, territories, and possessions of the United States. So the whole thing, all of it, actually defined properly that way. The United States of America is the party of the second part of the agreement. Interesting, right? The United States of America, right, is what? Also the United States. Meaning they're under the bus. All of them are under the bus. Congress finds the following: that the United States, by and through the Attorney General, entered into an agreement with the parties. Well, guess what? How'd that happen? By the power of attorney that Stark took control of him over. The agreement is a valid binding settlement agreement between the parties and the United States that operates in the nature of a release dismissal agreement. Because, like I said, Stark basically stuck it to them after they'd gotten done with their quote unquote judgment, but before they'd done the sentencing. So he threaded the needle like right in between, like where they were doing their thing, and he's like, "Well, if you're going to do this, you're going to enter into contract with me." They did. The agreement contained an alternative dispute resolution clause, binding arbitration, that provided for arbitration as the exclusive remedy for relief to the parties and the United States. The United States consented to the arbitration, and the awards made thereunder for the equitable relief of the parties and the United States are binding. I certainly hope that the Colorado legislature writes something to this akin to this, because it would have to be written exactly the same way, except exchange the United States with Colorado. Here's the thing. Clearly, by the lien, it doesn't even matter. I mean, you could lien the congressional building if you wanted to. I mean, for God's sakes. So basically, with this in place, you could take the bill to them and say, "Here, pay this," or I'm gonna lien the Capitol building. Tell you all to get out. Okay, so Congress hereby expressly waives any defenses to the equitable relief awarded to the parties, beneficiaries, and corporate beneficiaries by the arbitrator. I'm just going to kind of skip through this bit because it is a bit long, 22 pages. I'm not going to do all that. This is who they were, record systems, names, people, prohibitory relief. This is something that I also stole out of here and put it in the KW. Trust funds and monetary relief, creation of a trust fund. There is established in the Treasury of the United States a trust fund to be known as the Justice Relief Superfund, hereinafter in this section referred to as the Superfund, consisting of such amounts as may be, and this is where it gets batshit crazy down here, appropriated to the Superfund pursuant to 7C of this Act, or credited to the Superfund as provided by Section 2. Transfers, going to skip that. Expenditures, going to skip it. Liability, limited to amount in trust fund. Yeah, fine. No big deal. Creation of sub-trust funds. Sub-trust funds under the Superfund. So they created the Superfund trust, and then they got all these little ones underneath it. Okay. Transfer to trust superfunds, again, hereby appointed the Superfund equivalent to, on the date of this enactment, take effect, $1 million per sub-trust fund, and account listed under subsection blah, blah. So the second that this thing went into effect, all this list, I don't know how many, well, what is it, 14, 6? No, because there's subsections under these sections. Shit, I don't know how many this is. 80 million instantaneously, wham, the second that this thing went into effect. Just an idea. And if that's crazy, you just hold on to your britches. 1 month after the date this enactment takes effect, here's where the millions are. This is a 4 in the trillions. 4,811,478,257 for the Bradley Christopher Stark Justice Relief Fund. That's not a misprint. That's real. 200 million shall be set off from the Bradley Christopher Stark Justice Relief Fund and credited to the community projects and public works of the United States Senate established by this section. Get this. He turns around and he gives 200 million to all the senators. But he gives them 2 million per senator for the purpose of community and public works projects within the senators' respective states. He just paid off the senators. I was like, God, that's brilliant. But anyway, this is not a joke. This got passed. But I found it interesting that he gave him this carrot stick. And Drew did exactly the same thing when we wrote up the private bill to Colorado. What Drew did is we said, okay, look, what we're going to do, because we want to control the money a little bit. So what we said is I don't know, because Drew's got like a 275 million coming to him or something like that. He took I think it was 60 million and told them in the private bill to establish county community civics classroom specifically on teaching the powers and functions of the grand jury. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. And maybe if this goes through and it works the way it does, I might go out there to set them up and then get them running and say, okay, go, because it'll be under Drew's control anyway, as far as getting the monies done and spent. So that's what we're doing to kind of do the carrot stick sort of thing. I think, if I remember correct, what Drew did for his carrot stick for each senator, I think was 100,000 for their each little spot. Okay, we're basically doing the same thing that Stark did, just with less money, obviously. Okay, 870 million shall be set off from the Bradley Christopher Stark Justice Relief Fund and credited to the Congressional District's Community Projects and Public Works Fund of the United States House of Representatives, established by this section. Each United States representative shall be allocated, again, $2 million per representative. So he pays off the senators, $2 million each up here, and he pays off every representative, $2 million each. This shit's just insane. Anyway, and then you just look at the rest of these numbers: 813 million, 7 trillion, 6 trillion, 812 million, 812 million, 812 million, 812 million, 14 trillion. This is getting, just a little bit batshit crazy. Every single time I said trillion, that's not what I meant. These are billions, not trillions. Sorry, that's my mistake. Yeah. So this is, billion. So 4 billion. So 4 billion there. These are all 800. So it's 7 billion, 14 billion. I mean, that is ridiculous. I mean, $14 billion for the Charles Elliott Hill Second Justice Relief Fund. Amounts that are analogous to the funds named in subsection E of this section and are received by the United States government as trustee shall be deposited into the Superfund for credit to the appropriate sub-trust fund or account in the Treasury. So anyway, I mean, like I said, the numbers are crazy. This gets into records and management of the trusts, which I won't bore you guys with. The investments, what they got to do with it. Limitation on use of funds. I think they do limit. The Superfund and any individual subtrust fund or account established by this act and the appropriations to said funds are hereby prohibited from being used to influence any legislation and shall not be made directly available for campaign financing or personal use by any. Okay, that's what he did. So Stark said, yeah, I'm going to give you all $2 million, but if I find 1 penny went into your own private personal financing, you're screwed. So that's what that was all about. On September 30th of each year, and this is an interesting part that I found in this thing, and I'm like, now I know where to go looking. On September 30th of each year, the Secretary of the Treasury shall transfer to the Treasury Trust Fund receipt account, quote, unclaimed monies of individuals whose whereabouts are unknown, close quote. That part of the balance of a subtrust fund or account established by this act that has been in the fund for more than 1 year and represents money belonging to individuals whose whereabouts are unknown, period. Now, this clause right here was where they screwed Stark. Because if you think about it, Stark has not done his doc set. So even though they called him a natural person, okay, again, like I said, a natural person is one who has the capacity for rights and duties. It doesn't mean that you're exercising them. Now you look at this clause, this unclaimed monies thing. So if Stark doesn't do whatever he needs to do within 1 year, where's it going to go? It's going to go straight into the Treasury under these unclaimed monies of individuals whose whereabouts are unknown. Now, by the way, this thing is going to be, I say is going to be a highly important thing for us to figure out what the hell it is. What is this? Where was the act of Congress that created this? And by God, what's the accounting of it? Because everybody says, well, there's money at the Treasury or there's money in your Social Security account. Well, wait a second. Here's an account right here that specifically says that this is the thing where the money goes if you don't claim it within 1 year. Okay. Now that I've got my doc set done, I demand a full accounting of the entire gross estate and any trust created therefrom from this account. And by the way, everybody still has to do their doc set from the standpoint of being able to go after this properly. Because, as I said, I'm betting that they're going to use, that they have already used this clause to take back from Stark and these other people what they think they got and stick it into this thing where then, the Treasury gets to basically control it and screw around with it. I'm not sure about that, but it's the way it reads just makes me feel like, and usually when I have a feeling, I'm usually correct, that would be what this is about. But this part there, that thing, the unclaimed monies of individuals whose whereabouts are unknown, doesn't that sound a hell of a lot like the Sestry K. By Act? Right? that we have to administer the estates of the Sesquique Vies that have gone beyond the seas, whose whereabouts are unknown, and that we not know if they be alive or dead. Doesn't that sound pretty familiar as far as the Sesquique Vi Act is concerned? I mean, it sure does to me. I'm saying that we get a bunch of people together, and anybody can, but this tracking this thing down and every single aspect of this thing, whatever it is, should definitely end up being a popular assembly committee that needs to look into that. So, okay, settle our state. That's a good place to put it. So I'm going to just copy and paste this term in here so I can remember to come back and look this up. Research project, basically, right? And that's what we should be doing. Setting up more research projects so that people can have more of these fun things to track down. What do you say, QC? I have previously, when messing around in Fidelity, an account called Morningstar, and the top says something about reserved for natural persons. Interesting. I found the Morningstar to be of interest from a Luciferian standpoint. Yes, exactly. I mean, yeah, an account called a Morningstar. Exactly right. We should start establishing the committees for the National Popular Assembly and start appointing chairpersons. And you should definitely be a chairperson for that, the settlement of the estate. Everybody that's interested can help you out, and you guys can run it. And then the committees will report back once a month. We'll have special meetings, special VSOF committee meetings. There'll be two different kind of special committee meetings. We're going to have, and I know I'm kind of digressing off class here for a second, but it's important because we want to get this all done. And I want you guys to understand that there's a lot of structure that still needs to be built up in the VSOF, not only in the National Popular Assembly rooms as far as getting those committees going, but also everybody who's a member of the Vocational Science of Freedom. I'm going to restart the Council of the Wise, which is something that we had going when we had the Discord a long time ago, and then that all fell apart. Well, Discord booted us off the platform because they're a bunch of communist thugs, and that'll focus on the organization and expansion of the VSOF. The National Popular Assembly committees will focus on the other research that we need people to work on and bring back and say, okay, we found this, or say, okay, we found that, or that's a red herring. What somebody said about that's a complete red herring. It doesn't mean what this guy or that girl thought it said. So we get to the absolute fact. So we're actually, and the purpose for all this is twofold. One, we're going to start all acting and operating as if we were running a grand jury, because that's how a grand jury runs. You have various different committees to do various different things, to look into certain things, and then they come back and they report to the entire grand jury. That's what I want the totality of the Vocational Science of Freedom to be as far as a research community is concerned. As far as people's participation, that's 100% voluntary. I'm not telling anybody they got to do anything. But if they want to, and there's a lot of people that do, then we need to start organizing it in a way that makes sense, and so that we can get fun stuff like this figured out. So back to Stark's award. It's an interesting part about unclaimed monies. Closing accounts, did tax relief. The party's beneficiaries and immediate family members are permanently exempt from all federal, state, and local taxes for the rest of their natural lifespan. Huh? Yeah, you read that. That's insane to me. That's right in the bill. So, bam, absolutely permanently exempt from all federal, state, and local taxes for the rest of their natural lifespan. I have never seen something like that before. Okay? I mean, that's just... Anyway, these are the types of things that I really would like to have the arbitrators, the arbitration people that are doing the awards. I would like them to put things like this into the arbitration awards, but none of them have done it yet. But technically, the way that the status docs are written, that's what the status docs say anyway, that we are permanently exempt from all of that garbage because we're one of the people. We're not a person. So anyway, provided that joint bank camp shall not be exempt from any federal, state, or local tax. Okay, so they took this guy out. Why, I don't know, but whatever. And this is weird. The corporate beneficiaries named in this act are exempt from federal income tax for a period of 3 consecutive years from the effective date of the enactment of this act. Now that's crazy because, in case you forget who the corporate beneficiaries are, they just made all of those banks exempt from federal income tax for 3 years. Now, again, this is some of these things that are like really weird and sneaky with this bill that just make you look at it and go like, what? And I'm scrolling back up to the list of corporate beneficiaries because it's like, it's all banks. Term corporate beneficiaries are these guys. JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, Royal Bank of Scotland, Credit Suisse, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citigroup, HSBC, which isn't even an American bank. Well, actually, Royal Bank of Scotland isn't an American bank either. Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, Union Bank of Switzerland, British Petroleum. So British Petroleum doesn't have to pay federal income tax for 3 years. Anybody find that a little bit weird? Or, sorry, Transocean. GlaxoSmithKline. Great, wonderful. So they make an entire huge, nasty drug company exempt from federal income tax. And then Volkswagen. It's like, what? Really? So it's there are so many parts of this thing that's so weird when you look at them. Where did I leave out? Okay, tax relief. So there's all this craziness. Okay, so the corporate tax, they're exempt from that, provided that these guys shall recover a total of 10% of the projected federal income tax liability benefits under this subsection attributed to the corporate beneficiaries named in the Act to be divided co-equally among the sub-trust funds listed in this subsection during the 3 consecutive year period this subsection remains in effect. Oh, I see what... Wait, no, hold on. Is that what they did? Did they just give all of the tax income from all of the corporations to Stark? Is that what they just did? Yeah, that's what they did. They took 10% and gave it to Stark. Crazy. Well, probably because the government couldn't pay for all that anyway. They're just as bankrupt as all the rest of these stupid things. Such amount shall be due no later than April 15th of the tax... Yeah, April 15th, yep. Remedies. Any party or beneficiary entitled to and granted immunity by this act having been found guilty by clear and convincing evidence to have committed a Class A felony offense as defined under Title 18 of the United States Code shall be subject to permanent removal from the United States of America, its territories and possessions, and such guilty party or beneficiary shall have their citizenship permanently revoked. Well, do I give a shit about United States citizenship? No. But anyway, this part was the part that I highlighted this long time ago. Total immunity from jail. Nothing in this section shall be construed to authorize any accused party or beneficiary entitled to or granted immunity by this act to be placed in the custody of any law enforcement officer for the purpose of confinement in any jail, prison, or other form of official or unofficial detention. If that's not absolute immunity, I don't know what is. Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction pursuant to conduct a criminal trial or other appropriate proceedings of any party or beneficiary entitled to or granted immunity by this act to determine the guilt or innocence of such party or beneficiary in accordance with the subsection of this section. So only so the Supreme Court could try them, but only if they commit a Class A felony. Other than that, everything else is they're immune. Enforcement, Congress shall have power to enforce this act, blah, blah, effective date. This act shall take effect 60 days after enactment. Okay, great. When did they enact it? Well, guess what? Private law. They passed it on December 3rd, 2016. So this was a little while ago. I didn't hear about this whole thing until 2019 was when I first heard about Stark and what they did, or what this whole thing was, and started to gather the information on it. So now it's private law. So it got passed by Congress. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. And then it's basically a verbatim of the same thing that we just read, so I'm not going to go back through it again. But I just want to scroll all the way down to the bottom and show you that, again, the unclaimed monies thing is still in here, right? So must look that up. And we should make claims upon these accounts if we can find them. And I have a lot more notes that you guys can read if you want to. But I'm just scrolling down to the bottom at the end. So resolved. The said bill pass. 2/3 of the senators present having voted in the affirmative. Whatever this thing was, it was passed by the House and Senate by 2/3 majority. Right? Done. Agreed. Now I'll get into Obama's little part of this. From my understanding, what happened was that 2/3 of the House of Representatives, so it passes the House and it passes the Senate. Okay, so it's passed, right? Done? Yeah. So it goes to Obama. Oh, is drug trafficking Class A felony? I don't know if it is or not. Or maybe it is. But again, the only thing they do is get deported. That's it. They get their United States citizenship revoked and they get deported. Okay, deported to where? I would say deport me to the state of Alabama or the state of Michigan or wherever the hell you're domiciled at. Yeah, sorry, I get deported to my state. Yeah, screw you. I was never under your jurisdiction at all. That's what I would have argued. And see, here's the thing. That whole thing about the Class A felony thing, whatever, if it's under the laws of the United States, no one who does their doc set is subject to any of that shit at all. Period. Full stop. If Stark would have done his doc set, I think this thing would have looked even more solid and over the top. So here's the thing. The Senate passed it. The House passed it. And this is the information that I got from someone who was actually working with one of these other guys, Demetrius. I have Demetrius's arbitration award from the original case. What happened was, so it passes the House and the Senate, and it gets to Obama. And Obama's like, well, I want my money too. Because he saw that, $2 million was going out to every senator and every representative. So the story goes, and I can't confirm this, but it makes sense, knowing how sleazy Obama was, that he said, well, I want money for my presidential library. And Stark said, I don't give a shit about the money. Fine, you can have your money. And so they put the money in there for the presidential library, and then Obama signed it. That's what I heard happened. Now, again, I can't confirm that, but it certainly sounds like something Obama would do. This is Stark doing this. Is there any question in anybody's mind at this point that binding arbitration is a legitimate process to be able to enforce the vocational science and freedom status docs? And I'd say the answer would be no. It is valid, and that there is nothing that they can do about it, because Stark did all this, and he didn't even have the status doc set. He just did it through the binding arbitration and caught him basically by offering him a contract and said, well, if you go through with sentencing, you've agreed to the contract. And then he took power of attorney over Eric Holder. Well, guess what? Drew technically has power of attorney right now over every single judge that he has an arbitration award against. So technically, if Drew really wanted to, he could go down to the county recorder's office and he could transfer all of those judges' houses into his name just by signing their name onto a transfer deed. I don't suggest that he do that. I don't suggest anybody else does that, because what would probably happen is that all these idiots would go batshit crazy, and they'd probably, send out their dogs and be like, go arrest so-and-so, they just committed fraud. Well, no, you didn't commit fraud. But the point is that if Stark can do this to Eric Holder, he can do it to any stupid little state judge. I mean, Eric Holder was the Attorney General of the United States. You can slap him around that hard at that high of a level. State judge is nothing. Particularly not a stupid district attorney. They're even less than nothing. There's a lot of different ways we can go with this. I'll keep everybody up to date as to what happens, what Colorado says one way or the other about the private bill. I'll also keep you guys up to date as to whether we decide to just foreclose on this lien, because we've got the lien, and the fact that it is with the state of Colorado. And I'm not reading this like it's some sort of absolute thing, but the way this reads certainly sounds like it. But I suppose you could read it the other way. Daniel Austin Wazzle, in his capacity with the state of Colorado, meaning the capacity is with the state, not that with the state of Colorado, meaning the state of Colorado, all goods, chattels, and lands and tenements and real estate. I suppose you could read it the other way around like that, but foreclose on the lien and see what, see what the argument is. Technically, it's a weird thing because, yeah, the Attorney General came into the Georgia case like a bunch of idiots and really shouldn't have been there at all, but did that kind of put the state of Colorado on the bus? Yeah. Because if you want to come in here and say, oh, we're going to protect our so-and-so, well, then you're under the bus too, buddy, as far as the corporate state's concerned. I'm going to have a discussion with that with my friend on Monday and see if we can't hash that out. Back to the outline. Okay, so went through the awards, went through the lien, went through the Federal Arbitration Act, talked about that. Private bill, again, this is what Drew's doing, and we read the Starks bill and the bill that passed from it. Now we're down to other successes the status docs have had. So now we're going to get into a little bit of a backstory as far as how the first KW got created. And some of you know this story, but I'm going to go into a bit more detail because, again, I consider this to be what is a win on the process, because when we learned what we learned in this particular story that I'm going to tell about this back child support case, we realized that we were right about how the whole entire system works. With this little background story, this is what we call the first KW, we called it the boom letter. Or actually, Andy called it the boom letter because he was the one that created it. But he'd been a student of mine for 2 years by that time. When this happened to him, he created the KW literally in 20 minutes on a single piece of paper, which I'll show you guys what it looks like. The background story to this was that a friend and fellow student of the law created the first KW because of the following story. Wisconsin Child and Family Services had sent to my friend's mother a letter in which they were seeking back child support from her to be paid to Andy's father. In this letter, though, which the mother let Andy take a look at to see what he could do about it, the state of Wisconsin called Andy, who at that time had reached the age of 21 years, an adult child. That's what they called him in the letter. They said to get back child support for the adult child. That just pissed him off. He's like, oh, there's no way you're going to call me an adult child. So he set out to writing the boom letter. And so now we can open that up, which is handout 15. And I'll show you guys what happened. This was the statement that they sent, and all of this is redacted, so anybody can feel free to share this with anybody else you want to, as far as telling the story. So this was the statement that they sent to his mom, and so here's the due and the date and the subtotal and the amount that they said that she owed, whatever. And then it went up because, oh, you didn't pay it, so the amount kept going up. This was just like the second letter that they sent, and then wrote these things. Why do you keep adding more? First one was $250, $325. Now it's $565. So child support, custodial errands, interest, receipt and distribution fees. So they just started adding shit on just because she wasn't responding back to it. So this was part and parcel of like what pissed Andy off. Who gets child support interest, right? So he's like, okay, fine, screw it. So he wrote out this, what he called then, and what we still call the boom letter. And this was exactly what was on it. I mean, aside from the change of name, which this is the redacted one, but this is exactly what it was. State of Wisconsin, Branch Court, your county. In the matter of, and this was his mother's name, also known as her maiden name, versus John K. Doe, or actually this would have been reversed. So this would have been his dad's name, and this would have been his mom's name, respondent. His dad would have been the petitioner, and she would have been the respondent. And so, okay, so anyway, so that's what that is. And then he just called it execution of will, case number whatever, and this was what the child support had. The EVD number is like it's some number in here. I think it was like maybe the kid's PIN. No, it had a separate number connected to this, either to the account or to, I don't know if it was, I can't remember if it was, anyway, I can't remember what IVD stands for, but anyway. So the date, I under penalty of perjury, and this was spelled out correctly, upper and lowercase. State the following of my own free will, act and deed. I come before this court as be living and state the following. I am the executor and beneficiary of the John H. Doe Trust, Social Security number, blah, blah, blah. I hereby revoke any presumed or actual authority of this court, your county, and the state of Wisconsin, or any other third party whatsoever, to administrate my trust on my behalf as it pertains to this or any matter whatsoever, either in the past or may hereafter arise forever. This court shall order your county and any of its divisions and applicable agencies to provide me with copies of all records pertaining to this matter at my address below at their expense. So what did he do? He just asked for a full accounting. The Jane M. Doe Trust, which is his mother's name, is hereby and henceforth released from any liability to me or my trust whatsoever, ad infinitum temporis, which means from wherever in the past to wherever in the future. This court and any other party are hereby required to release and return any and all bonds created pertaining to this case to me at the address below immediately. He signed his name. I would remove the all rights reserved part because I don't actually think that was in there when he wrote that. So I don't know why he put that in there. But you remove the all rights reserved because this is something that you are standing on. So just get rid of that. And then he went and had it notarized. And then he mailed it to these idiots, Department of Child Family Services. I think he sent it registered mail, if I remember right, with requirement that they sign for it when they got it. He also did the same thing, registered mail, and sent it to the judge in Chambers, who was overseeing, I think it was just the family judge of the county that he was at. And so he sends that off to both places, and this is what he gets back, or what his mom gets back in the mail. So she gets a statement, and all of the accounts are zeroed out. Everything. But this is basically what he demanded. He demanded a full accounting. But look at the amount that they were trying to, the whole amount they were trying to go for. $10,875. Well, they zeroed everything out. Balance, zero. All the way down. This came like this piece of paper, came with this letter, and this was all that was on this letter. All balances are zero. Case will be closed in 60 days. And nobody signed it. No one. No one signed it. This is all that came with this accounting. That was it. The whole freaking thing just went away, and it zeroed everything out. All of it. Oh, IVD is the Social Security. Oh, it's part of the Social Security Act? Okay, thanks, John. I didn't know that. So yeah. So in one letter, he didn't even file it in any court because there wasn't a court proceeding going on. It was just this, the child family people doing their thing. And he mailed it to the judge, and he mailed it to them, and this is what came back, and it was gone. Whack, done. End of story. So we looked at that and we thought, okay, that worked. So we were correct that they're running everything through probate. And we're correct that what they're doing is administering our estates and our trusts. So this was the first KW, and now it's 33 pages long after 102 changes, edits, and revisions. That's what it's up to. It went from this to 102 times that document has been added to, altered, fixed, expanded upon. And so now what I've done is, instead of just saying you and the county, I've said the whole entire world except anybody that's not a member of my house. All of you are to give me a full accounting of everything that you've ever had, and to do so at your expense. And you do not get to administer anything of mine. And if you do, now you can enter into binding arbitration, and all the other fun stuff is in the KW. Okay, so that's where this started. This is the boom letter. And that was the result that it had. So we were like, okay, we are absolutely correct in what, because I knew about Edward Mandell House's quote, the one that I talk about, that he sent back and forth to Wilson, or that he sent to Wilson in a letter, I think, about that we shall administer them, and we shall hold the security interest over them forever, and we shall do all this by the ancient form of pledging. Well, again, when we were looking at Stark's information, that part down here about the unclaimed properties of individuals whose whereabouts are unknown, certainly sounds like a lot of administration. And here's the funny thing, though. Technically, there is no federal probate. So how does this all end up, running through the feds like this? Well, it happened because of what happened in 33. When the state governors committed treason and agreed that they would pledge the registered property on the state level to the feds for loans from a private bank cartel. Of course, because obviously the private bank cartel had completely taken over everything by then, because that's what happens when you allow the Khazarian mob one foot in the door. All of a sudden, your whole house is taken over by their filth, which is exactly what our problem is here in America. We need to rid all of America of every single Khazarian. Just get rid of them, all of them. And I don't give a fuck if we all cram into Israel or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I don't give a shit, but they got to go. Because all of their systems of slavery have to end. Or else we're never... You think forced vaccinations is bad? That's the tip of the iceberg of what they're going to try and do. These people are batshit insane, and they will, I'm sure, unleash things far, far worse than, some altered flu virus. They could fully just decide to spray the entire continent with anthrax. They'd go into the little bunkers and look, we'd look up and it wouldn't look any different than any other day, because guess what? They're spraying us every day anyway. Different thing. But anyway, I digress. Back to the point that it's all being run through probate, and it's all being administered through estates whose unclaimed monies. Well, think of it, just replace monies with estates. Unclaimed estates of individuals whose whereabouts are unknown. Could be the same damn thing, right? Totally same damn thing, which is more along the lines of what the Sestri says anyway. So once we did this, we were like, okay, we knew that, got that together, pieced it, it worked, got back this, the zero counting, and this really weird letter that was not signed and just on a, blank piece of paper. Well, for the exception of the name and the date up here. So yeah, that happened. So then we go, okay, so how can we expand on that? So we figured, all right, now what we can do is we can, how it works is from a standpoint of what the entire court system is, but particularly the family court system. Now, what I did is I grabbed this off of, I think it was BitChute. Don't hold me to that. It's a stolen Zoom call is what it is. And it's a Zoom call between a bunch of corrupt attorneys in St. Louis family court system. And they're all talking about, how we have to all work together, because there was a lawsuit that was filed that basically sued the entire St. Louis family court system. And I really would like to find the lawsuit if it can get tracked down, because this call is recent. So the lawsuit should still be able to be found somewhere in the St. Louis court system. Anyway, in this call, which is like 45 minutes long, all these attorneys are just going back and forth about, oh yeah, now we should do this to get, to stop them from doing that so that they don't know about this. And when they start talking, pay real close attention, because when they start talking about their IOLTA funds, IOLTA stands for interest on lawyers' trust accounts. Okay? So when these little cocksuckers start talking about their IOLTA funds and that they should pool their IOLTA funds together into one trust so that basically to hide it, that's what they're talking about. So I give this to everybody to wake you guys up as to how evil, particularly the family court system is, because that's what their main focus is to destroy the white Christian household. That's their goal. That's all it is. I mean, that's their absolute goal. They do it through these corrupt court systems. If anybody can find that case, and you can go through and watch the lecture. Maybe they mention it, like maybe they give the name of a plaintiff. I don't know. I didn't think I heard one, but of course I didn't listen to the whole entire thing all the way through. What I found originally was like an abbreviated version of this call, which was only like 6 minutes long, and was annoying because somebody had put music in the background of it. I was like, okay, that's not what I want. And then I found the whole call, downloaded it, and then re-uploaded it on YouTube, but under unlisted. Anybody that has the URL, you guys can share this URL with whoever you want, and only the people that you share the URL with will be able to see it. It's not public, so hopefully YouTube isn't gonna, ban me or was it in a Facebook group? Yeah, it probably was. There was probably a bunch of people that spread it around. In fact, you might even have been the one that first dropped it onto the server. I don't know. And so then I tracked it down, got it, saved it, re-uploaded it, and I'm gonna upload it also onto put it up to Odyssey and probably put it on BitChute as well. So that's family court in a nutshell for you. That's the boom letter for you. Let's take another 10-minute break. And then when we come back, I'll talk about what happened in Phil's case about his discharge of debt and get into the Jerome Daly case as well, which is just an important thing for everyone to know.